Hello, you are on the Alice Reddit Stories channel. More than 90% watch my videos without a subscription. Subscribe to the channel so we always stay in touch. Enjoy watching. OP found out I've been dating my father for almost 4 months. Throwaway because I can never have anyone know this happened to me. I still have no idea how to process it. Buckle up because this is a long one. I've never met my dad. He ran off when my mom found out she was pregnant with me. My brother was only 8 months old at the time, so he also has no memory of him. There are no pictures of him anywhere, and my mom hates talking about him. All I know is that he was emotionally abusive to her and a real asshole. I, 25M, have a thing for older men. Call it daddy issues or a fetish or whatever you want, but I pretty much only date or sleep with men 40 and up. My family doesn't know this, or that I'm gay for that matter. It wouldn't be an issue, they just never ask. We don't really share personal things like that. About 6 months ago I met David, fake name, at a club. We hit it off great. He's in great shape for his age, supposedly 43, although that's a lie. He's actually 47 as I found out, really attractive, charming, etc. He left for a 2-week work trip a few days after we met, but we kept messaging each other and I really liked him, which is rare for me. We went on a date after he came back and have pretty much been dating ever since. He has a lot of money and I'm kind of his sugar baby, but that's not the reason I was attracted to him. Definitely a plus though. I didn't tell anyone we were dating except for 2 of my best friends. He also never met any of my friends or family, and I never met his. This changed last night. We were at a restaurant when out of the corner of my eye, I spotted my mom. I don't live at home and we only usually text if we need something, so I didn't know she'd be there, and TBH I still don't know why she was. She hates going out and thinks it's a waste of money. She had not seen us yet, but David noticed me looking at her. I'll forever remember the way his face changed when he saw her. His expression went from his casual, charming smile he always had to this blank, panicked look. I obviously noticed and got a really bad feeling, so I asked him what's wrong, and he just got up and excused himself. I kept asking him where he was going and grabbed him so he couldn't just leave. At this point I was really confused and suspicious, but I would have never guessed what would happen next. I don't think anything could ever prepare me for it. At some point while he was getting up, my mother must have spotted us, because next thing I know she's next to our table, asking me what was going on. I couldn't really pinpoint her facial expression because it looked like she was horrified, but again, at this point I didn't know David was my father and she doesn't know I'm gay. David is visibly uncomfortable and looks like he wants to die. He was literally sweating. I assumed this was because he didn't want my mother to know I was dating someone of his age. I was about to try to explain what was going on to my mom when she said, "Why would you go behind my back like this?" I was so confused, because again, I didn't know he was my dad, so like what was she going on about? She probably assumed I had looked for and met up my father without talking to her about it, despite her telling us how badly he treated her. To me, however, it seemed like she was acting crazy for no reason. I kind of took it personally and thought she was trying to tell me who to date and what to do, so I casually told her that I was just on a date with my boyfriend, and I tried to grab David's hand, but he just jumped up and ran away. He literally bolted like a fucking Olympic runner. I cannot get the fucking image out of my head of him jumping between waiters to get away. Everyone was staring at us by this point. It was so embarrassing and I was mortified. My mom looked like she was frozen in place. I was more confused than ever. I had no idea what was happening. I had assumed she had asked me that because she didn't want me to be gay, which made no sense. She is very open and liberal, or date older men, which made a bit more sense but was still none of her business. But her expression just made my skin crawl. It's like I could feel the horror she must have been experiencing. She just told me to get up and come with her. I was still confused, but something in her body language told me to just do as I was told. I quickly paid for our drinks and appetizers. Thank God the main course hadn't been served yet. BC damn was that shit expensive. My mom excused herself to her friends, and once we were in her car outside, we just sat there in silence for what felt like at least 10 minutes. I didn't really dare to say anything. I was still processing that my boyfriend just fucking ran away from me and my mother. I had also tried to text him, but he wasn't responding. Shocker, I know. When my mom spoke, it sounded like she had been shot. She sounded so wounded, I think it might haunt me forever. She asked me who that man was, and I explained to her, and I went on about how much I loved him because again, I was still thinking of David as my boyfriend and assumed my mom's reaction was because of his age or gender. I cannot believe that I went on about how much I romantically loved my dad right to my mother's face. It makes me want to puke. Long story short, she told me he was my father and that she instantly recognized him. That talk was the most traumatic experience of my life. We both started crying at some point and just wept for a while in the car. I was howling, it was fucking primal. I'm not usually emotional or prone to crying, so it was really shocking to me just how much pain a person can feel. Most of it ID just a blur now, especially compared to how clearly I remember every awful moment of the evening up to this. We drove home. I slept in my old bedroom. We haven't talked about it since, but my brother is also staying at our place still. He's a med student, never moved out BC of housing costs, and he knows something's up. Tried talking to me about it and I just broke down again. How do I ever tell anyone about this? The worst part is I think despite all of this I still love David. Just writing that makes me want to throw up. I cannot believe this is reality. Like, how fucked is all of this? Why did this happen to me? I don't even think I could tell my therapist about this. I tried messaging David, but I just don't know what to say. The last message I sent him literally just says, "Please call me, I love you," sent right after he ran away. Like, what the fuck? What the actual fucking fuck? Like, how do I come back from this? How do I ever look my mom in the eye again? I haven't left my room yet and I'm in tears again while writing this. I can't even remember the last time I cried before yesterday, and now I've been doing it nonstop. If anyone has any advice, as if, who the fuck else would ever accidentally do this besides stupid me, it would be highly appreciated. Also feel free to make dark jokes about this, it's my coping mechanism. I also did not proofread this as I don't think I can bring myself to read it again. Update: okay, posting this the first time was a nightmare, so this is take 2. Please let me know if you see the comments. Firstly, I really appreciate everyone's comments, although I'm not in a mindset right now where I can take them seriously. Just feels kinda weird when people tell me everything's going to be alright when my entire life is in shambles. I do think I'm doing way better than I should. I think I'm just dissociating though. However, what I do not appreciate is countless people DMing me, asking me questions about my sex life, so I will address this once and for all so y'all can stop, you fucking animals. You know who you are. Yes, we had sex. No, I was not the bottom. I do not subscribe to such outdated and heteronormative ideals of what gay sex is supposed to be like. I am a switch and only date other switches. Yes, the sex was good. I don't date people who are bad in bed. No, I will not continue to have fucking sex with my father, send you nudes, or give you sex stories of this. Like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all? Anyways, there you go. Have the tea you so clearly desire so you can fucking leave me alone. I also don't appreciate the blatant racism in my DMs and on TikTok, saying he wanted to get rid of my black ass, or that that's what you get for having white DNA. Like, are y'all fucking crazy? Granted, this was mostly in TikTok comments, but some of y'all have no shame DMing some random person and just spewing blatant racism? Also, that's what's bothering you about this? Bruskull, there was homophobia too, but like, ain't not even worth addressing that. Y'all know it's wrong and still keep going, no point in even trying to correct you. Now, for all the other lovely people, I think I need to talk about my mother first. A lot of people have a lot to say about her, and I just think I need to set some things straight. She is not a bad person and did everything she could to raise us to the best of her ability. She's also a black single mom living in a country where she is a minority and which put a lot of roadblocks in her way, but she always made sure to give my brother and I the best childhood she could. When I think of her, I only have fond, loving memories. Some people assumed because of some of my previous statements that we are not a close family, which is definitely not the case. We just really value independence and freedom. I live about an hour away from my mom, but still visit her monthly. We call at least once a week. We just don't force each other to confess things or information the person doesn't willingly give up. My brother, for example, has always been very open about his dating life with my mom. She's met all his girlfriends and they often came to family gatherings. I'm just more private. That being said, she has not always been perfect, because no parent is. A lot of people were upset at her for not telling us about our dad, and trust me when I say that she is aware that she has made a mistake. But she also moved to another continent just to keep us away from him and make sure we never run into him. There is no way that she could have known that he would move to the same country as us years later. I'm not gonna name specifics because I don't want anyone to recognize this is me, since a lot of this is already quite specific, but she really did her best to make sure we never have to go near him, and none of this is her fault. I don't blame her in the slightest. If anything, I blame myself for being so angry at her whenever she tried to tell me or my brother about him. I was never interested in finding out more about my father. In truth, I resented him deeply for leaving my mother alone to fend for herself in a world that wanted to see her fail. Since this has come to light, a lot of things I didn't know about my family have also been brought up. I found out that my brother and my mother often talked about my father, just not in front of me. Since I was so adamant to never learn anything about him, I remember throwing a tantrum because my brother kept asking when Dad's birthday was. My brother knew his full name, had seen pictures of him, and knew most of the full story of what had gone down between my mom and him. It is not my story to share, as it is fully hers, and so I will not go into details, but know that he was not just emotionally abusive like I had believed my entire life, but also physically and financially. The story of him leaving when she found out I was pregnant isn't fully accurate either. He apparently threatened to harm her if she didn't get an abortion, and so she packed her things up and left him. According to her, he never reached out or tried to find her, and she moved to make sure it would stay that way. She really just tried to protect us, and I'll never be able to truly articulate how grateful I am. Obviously, finding out about all this just makes me feel worse. I always shut them out when they tried to tell me about my father and refused to learn anything about him because I naively presumed that I was better than him and therefore didn't need to bother learning anything about a man I wasn't good enough for. Obviously, that backfired, and here we are. Thankfully, my mother does not blame me whatsoever. She is extremely understanding of my side, and we've convinced her to find a therapist, and she also joined group counseling for victims of domestic violence. My brother, on the other hand, is absolutely livid. I felt we had to tell him eventually, and after consulting with my therapist, we decided to just rip it off like a band-aid, set him down, and I basically first told him I was gay. He did not care, as expected, then that I was into older men. He was very confused where this was going and also why I was telling him. I don't think he was ready for it or took it well. And then that I met Dad, and that bomb kinda hit and took all his attention at first, because he's always wanted to meet him and really struggled with not having a father, unlike me. His excitement quickly faded though when he connected the dots of me being into older men, meeting Dad, and my mom, and my weird and worrying behavior for the past days. It fucked him up pretty bad. I really regret telling him it all. He can't come to terms with it and is visibly disgusted by the thought, as he always viewed our father as our father, while I viewed him as some afterthought sperm donor that ran off. He hasn't really talked to me since we told him, and when he does, it's disgusting remarks, insults, or passive aggression. My mother is furious with him, and it's not helping. She's always hated when we'd fight, but now especially she feels like he's treating me unfairly since I'm already going through so much, but I think he's fully within his right to be angry or disgusted. He's just being such a dick about it. It's also really uncharacteristic of him to act like this. He even went as far as to call my aunt, Mom's sister, and tell her what happened. Thankfully we can trust her to keep it a secret. Her husband and her are basically a second set of parents of us, but I still think it's really fucked up of him to do that. He also refuses to see a therapist and keeps saying that I'm the mentally messed up one, not him, whenever we try to bring it up. It's only been like less than 48 since we told him though, so I'm sure he'll come around. He also really wants to go meet Dad, which everyone keeps telling him is a terrible idea because he really is the worst. Stay tuned BC goddamn. But he's so stubborn and keeps yelling at me to give him Dad's address. He's so obsessed with this idea of a man that doesn't exist and wants shit to do with him. Even before I found out he was my father, he never wanted to meet my family. Granted, I also didn't want him to meet them, but the one time we talked about it he laughed at the idea as if it was preposterous. Now, he's really the only person I blame in all of this, besides myself. He really is a little cowardly piece of trash and I wish I had never fucking met him. I think this entire thing and his behavior after being recognized just really broke something in me that I didn't really know was there. I never cared about him before, but now I genuinely know that he will also never give a single shit about me, and that really hurts. Basically I kept texting and calling him the evening of what we've referred to as the event because I was desperate and confused and couldn't really believe what was happening. I then texted him 2 more times the day off and called once. No response to either. Then 2 nights ago I decided to call him again even though everyone in my entire life was against it. This was also just after we told my brother and we had a huge fight about it. I was really vulnerable and what the hell was fried in my head, but some part of me must have believed that he'd comfort me. He had been extremely emotionally available during our relationship, which very much contrasts what my mother had told me about him and their relationship. I didn't think he'd pick up the phone, but he did, and it was fucking terrible. He immediately started yelling as soon as he picked up. He had never yelled at me before, ever. Started calling me all kinds of slurs like faggot and pussy, which is just absurd. Started threatening me that he'd off me and my bitch mother if I ever contacted him again. Said that if I told anyone about this that I'd regret ever meeting him. Joke's on you, bitch, I already do. It was such a fucking turn of character. I was genuinely not prepared for it and had no idea what I was supposed to do. I just cried on the other end of the phone while he kept yelling at me till he finally hung up. The entire thing was utterly terrible and I can't believe that I didn't trust my mother and listen to her sooner when she clearly tried to tell me how horrible he was on multiple occasions throughout my childhood. I just feel so stupid. I'll probably never contact him again, but I cannot believe I undid all the efforts my mother put in to keep us safe all those years and let him play the both of us in the exact same way. Just BC, I wanted some dick. I took some people's advice and sent the post to my therapist with a short email explaining some more private stuff. I sent it around 5 a.m. the day after the event and then went to sleep for almost 15 hours and woke up to tons of missed texts and calls from her, starting with extreme concern and then slight annoyance because I think she thought it was a sick prank since I didn't respond. We talked on the phone later and she told me that I can call her whenever I want. She is not an in-person therapist, which I prefer. I do feel security in knowing that I can confide in her, and I'm glad I told her. I also joined some online support groups. Most of them either shamed me BC of the age gap or my sexuality, so that didn't really do much good. I've also told my 2 best friends, against what some people advised. I trust them with everything, and they wouldn't be my friends if that wasn't the case. I will be using fake names for this, but basically Leah, my oldest friend, we met in kindergarten, called me on FaceTime, not unusual. The night of this happening I had told her I was sick so she'd leave me alone, but she called me to ask how I was doing the next day. I had just had another mental breakdown and was still sobbing when I picked up the phone, and she was obviously concerned, and I just kinda blurted it out. Of course she thought I was joking at first, asked me if I was on drugs or some shit. I don't even do drugs, lol, because I pretty much never cry. I then just kinda told her everything, and it was really freeing. She was the first person I told. I then sent our other friend the TikTok of this and just let her react to it, then told her I wrote that and let Leah handle it. I'm really grateful for them, they have been insanely supportive. I'm still staying at home and they're helping me to feed my cat and look after my plants for as long as I need. No judgment at any point, just them asking me how they can help. Get yourself friends like this. So, all in all, my dad is trash to no one's surprise. I might have mentally broken my brother. Therapy works and my mother and friends are the best people on this planet. I'll keep answering questions for the next few days, and I think after that I'll log out of this Reddit account for good. Documenting and sharing this with people has really helped me, and I appreciate all the comments, even if I cannot do much with them to help my recovery at the moment. Also, the jokes are top tier, keep 'em coming. Everyone's tiptoeing on eggshells around me, so it's nice to see the comments just go feral. I just want to feel normal again. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, there are a lot of interesting stories ahead of you.